Oh yeah. Today, I'm going to be reviewing for you the DJI Spark. First things first, I would like to go over everything you get when you get the DJI Spark. So the first thing you get, obviously, is the actual drone itself. You get a case, get another case. Also inside of the case, some extra propellers. There's 2 in this one, 2 in that one, so 4 extra sets of propellers. Wall charger, USB cord, lots of instructions which are not as helpful as Google, but it is still there if you have no internet access. Propeller guards, they just clip on the end of the drone, kind of like that. These are great for flying indoors, or if you're flying around like a lot of trees or something like that, because the drone is so small you can fly it indoors. They do catch the wind significantly. You can feel the drone catching the wind while these are on, so I don't usually use them outdoors just for that reason, that the wind does catch the drone while you're using these. Okay, so these are all the things that you get when you buy this DJI Spark. If you decide to get the Fly More package, I think they call it, they give you 1 extra battery, which I highly recommend, and a remote control, which I also highly recommend. Before I continue, I just want to say that this is not a paid advertisement, so I will be somewhat objective on this review, right?
Right.
The next thing I want to talk about is the size. This is incredibly small. I've never had a drone before, so I have nothing to compare it to. But compared to a smartphone, this is my Google Pixel 2, it is actually much smaller side by side if you don't include the wings. If you have a smartphone like in your pocket, just picture a smartphone with drone wings on the end of it, and that's pretty much it. Next, I want to talk about the camera. It's a 12 megapixel camera. It shoots in 1080p, so it doesn't shoot in 4K. With a 12 megapixel camera, it should be capable of shooting in 4K. I'm thinking maybe the computer can't keep up, but it doesn't shoot 4K. It shoots 1080p in 30 frames per second. For those of you who like to take cinematic shots, fly slow, because at 30 frames per second you cannot slow it down to half speed. You can always speed it up though post-production. I would say make sure you fly slower than you think you should be flying, because like I said, you can always speed it up, but you cannot slow it down at 30 frames per second. The Spark has a 2-axis gimbal. What that means is it can keep the camera steady with this up and down tilt. Also through side-to-side tilt. So those are the 2 axes that it keeps it still. It is not a 3-axis gimbal, which means when you turn side to side like this, it does not stabilize and keep the camera straight. It only keeps it straight up and down, side to side. One thing I would like to note with this gimbal, with a lot of gimbals, you will notice any panning side to side shots, sometimes you get a little bit of camera tilt because the gimbal is cheating and trying to keep that camera steady. This gimbal doesn't cheat. Any side to side shots, it's perfectly level. It's a very, very steady gimbal. The gimbal has an 85-degree range of rotation on this axis, the up and down, meaning you can basically shoot straight forward and you can turn it to look straight down. So that range is pretty much a 90-degree angle. Any angle that you would need to shoot from a drone, whether it's straight forward or straight down, you can shoot with this gimbal. For those of you who are camera nerds like me, it's an 82-degree field of view on the camera, which is the equivalent to a 35mm lens. As far as speed goes, it can ascend or descend at 7 miles per hour, which is 11 kilometers per hour. Horizontal speed, however, is 31 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour, which is pretty fast for this little tiny drone. The reason that I highly recommend this remote is that you can control the drone with your smartphone. It's through the DJI Go app. The controls are very responsive with the cell phone. There's not much lag between when you hit the button and when the drone does what you want it to do. However, the range on a phone is only 100 meters horizontally. Vertically, it can fly up to 50 meters high. This is just because it's literally just connecting to the Wi-Fi on your phone. So that's about as far as it can go. And in my experience, it can't go that far. Maybe a little more than half of that. With this remote, however, you can fly up to 2 kilometers away, 1.2 miles. You can also fly 500 meters vertically. So this remote makes a huge difference. If you are flying it for more than just taking selfies or having it follow you around, if you do want to get cinematic shots, I do recommend the remote because it's going to be very hard to get it with that limited range on your cell phone. Talking now about the battery. DJI reports the battery to last 16 minutes. In my experience, it lasts about maybe 10 to 14 minutes. The cold does mess with it, as with all batteries. And I have only flown it in the winter so far, which could account for the shorter battery life. DJI reports 16 minutes. Regardless, 16 minutes is kind of short. Highly recommend getting a second battery. 16 minutes might not be enough for you to get all of the shots that you want to get. The DJI Spark does have a front obstacle sensor. It doesn't have any sensors on the side. It doesn't have anything on the back. It does have a front sensor and also sensors on the bottom. This sensor can detect objects anywhere from 0 to 5 meters, 0 to 16 feet, and it will be able to stop before running into that object as long as you are under 7.5 miles per hour. Now that might sound kind of complicated. On this remote, there is something called sport mode. If sport mode is turned off, it flies exactly at that 7.5 miles per hour. It will be able to stop. If you turn it on, however, that is when you're getting up to 30 miles per hour. If it senses something, it's not going to be able to stop in time. Only fly it in sport mode if you're in wide open area, you know you're not going to crash into anything. Otherwise, turn that off. It's a lot easier to just fly it slow. The gestures are not the main part of the drone, and I just want a drone that can do cinematic stuff, and I don't really care about the gestures. But the gestures are a part of the drone that some people will use as their primary. It is a small drone. The gestures do play to its advantage. So, without further ado, we are going to go over the gesture controls for the DJI Spark. I also want to note that I have never done this before. This is my very first time controlling this drone through gestures. So we will also be testing how easy it is to use the gestures for somebody who has never done it before. was able to get it to do all of the gestures. It's just that my success rate was not very high, and just the amount of times it took me to do over and over to finally get it to understand what I was saying, it just wasted the battery, and it doesn't have a very high battery life to begin with. So gestures, it's a no for me on gestures. But the drone as a whole, big time yes for me. Overall, big thumbs up for me. Thank you for watching this review. If you liked this review and want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. What do you think of the DJI Spark?
Is that your tripod? Is it the camera? I don't know what that is.